Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us for our webinar. My name is Alan Mednick, and I'm honored to serve on the Construction Suicide Prevention Week Board of Directors. My career began in construction industry, first as a draftsman and a mechanical engineer, and later as a construction risk management insurance specialist, where I spent more than 20 years working with organizations to help create safer workspaces. After losing my daughter Raven and my niece Ayla to suicide, I made a decision to use my lived experience to help others and dedicate my work to suicide prevention. Today, I serve as a suicide prevention manager for LivingWorks, where I work with organizations and communities to build suicide prevention skills through evidence-backed trainings, including Assist, Safe Talk, and LivingWorks Start. These programs help develop the awareness, confidence, and skills to recognize when someone may be struggling, start a conversation, and connect them to support. I'm also honored to serve on numerous suicide prevention committees and boards, including the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention's National Public Policy Council. Additionally, I'm certified trainer for approximately 10 suicide prevention programs, including research-backed programs such as Assist and Safe Talk, as well as AFSP's Talk Saves Lives and Construction Talk Saves Lives. What started as a regional initiative in Kansas City in 2019 has grown into a nationwide effort to bring awareness to the public health crisis of suicide and mental health challenges in the construction industry, with a goal of saving lives. In 2025, more than 700 organizations representing more than 500,000 workers across nearly all 50 states and U.S. territories participated in the Construction Suicide Prevention Week. And we are hoping to exceed those numbers this year. If you have not already, please be sure to register your company's participation on our website to receive your OSHA recognized certificate at www.constructionsuicideprevention.com. With more than 8 million people employed in the construction in the US and far more worldwide, we still have more people who need access to the tools that could save a life and reverse the trend that has placed construction as an industry with one of the highest rates of death by suicide. The Construction Suicide Prevention Week initiative provides free resources to people in and around the construction industry to help them start conversations, hold stand-down events, and share information with colleagues who may be struggling. Our goal is to put more tools in the hands of people who build our communities, and this webinar is one of the resources we're proud to be able to provide. We want today to be interactive, so please feel free to submit your questions through the chat or the Q&A. Now let's get to today's program. I'm excited that our speakers today are Alejandro Sandoval, Chris Lalevee, and Rich Jones. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to each one of them to do a quick introduction, and then we're going to get started with today's program. So Chris, take it away.
Thanks, Alan. I am Chris Lalevee. I am a member of the International Union of Operating Engineers. I'm located in Local 825 out of New Jersey. I'm a business agent there, and I also run our Members Assistance Program.
Thank you, Chris. Alejandro, why don't we go to you?
Hey, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Alejandro Sandoval. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and founder of Sandoval Therapy here in Pasadena, California. I grew up from a big, long history of construction workers myself. My father, my uncles, they were all in the construction world. My father retired recently from being a drywall finisher here in the local union. This topic is really important to me because not only do I unfortunately see a lot of individuals when they really suffer in silence and they struggle a lot, but I'm blessed and fortunate enough to also see the other side of it when they come in my office and we're able to work through and have breakthroughs, insights, especially when they have a space, a safe space to be able to open up and process a lot what's going on. So I feel like this conversation is just so needed, and honestly, we don't talk enough about it. So I'm eager for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Rich?
Hey, everyone. My name is Rich Jones. I'm the CEO and founder of an organization called BuildWell Health. BuildWell Health, we are a comprehensive behavioral health provider. We do everything except prescribing and residential care. So ranging from digital health, online services to we have on-site mental health clinics on some of these data center builds and these larger projects. We've been focused exclusively on the construction industry. We were known as U-Turn Health in the past. We rebranded the BuildWell to reflect our commitment to the construction industry. I'm a licensed counselor, as Alejandro said, same kind of background in that regard clinically, but also from a blue collar family, and passionate about this for a whole bunch of different reasons, guys, but it's real close to the heart. And I think we're at a critical juncture, and I don't really see a more important issue in terms of behavioral health than what this industry is facing right now.
Yeah, that's really good points. And I want to thank you all for sharing that. One thing I've noticed already is it's clear that while each of you come from different backgrounds, clinical care, labor leadership, organizational wellness, lived experience, you all believe that people don't have to face these struggles alone. And for me, I've learned that one conversation, one person willing to notice, ask, and listen can truly change the course of someone's life. And that's why I'm so grateful to have this conversation with you guys today. I know it's going to be a great one. So let's start talking about peer-to-peer. Support is so powerful in the construction industry. Chris, let's start with you. You spent your career around construction workers on the job sites. What do you see that makes peer-to-peer support so important in the industry?
Well, a couple of things, Alan. One is the trust factor. We're kind of tribal that way as construction workers. We trust each other. We worry about, when it comes to talking to somebody, if it was leadership or human resources, you're worried about where your job might end up or go. Talking to a peer, having somebody that might have some lived experience, might be able to share some things with you. It just makes a big difference. It really does. You're talking the same language, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And so why do workers often confide in others, other tradespeople, before they'll talk to their family, supervisors, or a counselor? Why do you think so?
Well, I think, in my personal opinion, you go home and you don't want to bring your work home. So, your family doesn't need to hear about that. I'm personally somebody, when I have a rough day, I take a few minutes at the end of the day before I go home, because I don't want to bring any of that, aggravation in my world into my house. I just kind of want to do a reset and go into my house with an open mind. When it comes to supervisors, like I said, it's a very unknown area. You don't know what you're going to get. You may get a supervisor, that's what we're all pushing for, people on this call, supervisors and leadership that understands, but that's not always going to be the case. So, talking to a peer, and, I'm going to say, especially people that share that lived experience, hey, what can I do about this? What can I, where can I go? And it's just very effective.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I take my son's experience into case. He was when he was going to his counselor, he said to me one time, my counselor doesn't know what I'm going through. He never lost his sister. So it was that confidence that when he was in a group of other kids the same age, he felt comfortable to share with them, and that's what really pulled him through. So it's really powerful. Rich, you've worked with contractors across the country. Does what Chris described match what you're seeing?
Yeah, it absolutely 100% aligns. And honestly, Alan, just not to be over dramatic about it, I think things like peer support or alternative ways of thinking about solving this problem, it's the only hope we have. Peers are absolutely part of the solution and a vital part of the solution, because here's the bottom line. Construction workers are not going to access traditional services. They just won't. The thing that drives me mad about this conversation is we keep thinking that this is a matter of like, let's add more of the same, right? So here's all we need to do is bring attention to this issue, so maybe we can get a new EAP contract. And I'm saying this as an EAP provider, guys. All that is BS. The problem is, if people engage in services, I'll just use a real tangible example. Someone like Alejandro is a licensed family therapist. If people engage with him, they get better. The problem is nobody wants to engage with therapy, especially tough guys and tough women in the construction industry. I think peers are a vital way to bridge that gap, right? So they might not talk to the supervisor, they might not talk to HR, but if I'm working side by side with Chris, I'm going to let him know what's up. It's just natural. And so what I think is if we focus on that level of intervention, whatever that looks like, that's where you get guys like Alejandro involved then. And here's the other fact I want to say before I shut up. We know that treatment and recovery services work. That's the other thing about it. There's a 75% success rate if people follow through.
Yeah.
And you just referenced it with your son. You have to get people over all that misgiving, get them and then get them to a good therapist, and it'll take care of itself. But the peer part, I think, is vital on that engagement level, if it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I see your passion, so I appreciate that. That's awesome. But since you've been mentioning Alejandro a lot, let's go to him. Alejandro, from a therapist perspective, why does that first conversation with a trusted peer often become the turning point before someone ever seeks professional help?
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, it's vitally important because look, the reality is, people don't just wake up one morning and say, I'm gonna go see a therapist. I'm gonna go find one. I'm gonna do it right now. Right? That's extremely rare. I mean, does it happen? Sure, it does. But the reality is, by the time someone comes to see me in my office or virtually or wherever I see them, they've already been able to talk to someone that they trust, whether it be a friend, a coworker, a family member. You know how many initial calls I get from a spouse, from the wife? So many first calls. Hey, my husband is struggling. I really need him help. He's not coming in. There's so many times. And then eventually, hopefully with work, with encouragement, then they come in. So it is vitally important that there has to be someone there, right? And you don't have to go deep into the conversations, but look, when somebody comes to therapy, they've usually been carrying something for months. It's not just all of a sudden new, right? Then someone notices, a friend, a colleague, like you're saying, like somebody that works right next to them because they see them a lot every day, right? Then someone asks, then someone listens, which lowers the shame, and then it opens the door and opportunity to then come in and actually seek help. You know, as therapists,
awesome.
we're not the first step. The first step is usually someone else.
Yeah.
But feeling understood by someone reduces the shame. And folks, shame is what keeps people isolated.
Yeah.
Can I say something about that, Alan?
Absolutely.
The other thing about that, if you think about what Alejandro just said, it's also that's also how it works in regular healthcare too. Think about it. I'm feeling sick or whatever. I got something going on. I wind up talking to my wife or my mom or something. You don't automatically run to the doctor either.
Right.
But I think one of the reasons why talking about it in a formal way around peer support in our country, I think where mental health is concerned, that interim step, people don't really understand mental health, so they're much less likely to support it. If that, they don't know what to make of it.
It totally makes sense because what you hit it on the spot, Alejandro, is my wife was the one that made the call to the counselor, made an appointment for me to go, and because so it absolutely is spot on what you said. So I want to go to one other question on this topic is, well, first of all, I'd like for each of you, this is going to be for all of you, I'd like you to answer this one. What does using your voice mean to you? And Chris, why don't we start with you?
Well, using it means a few things. It means, breaking the stigma around the conversation. It's leading by example. It's, being a leader. Using my voice is powerful. As leaders, we want to lead by example. You don't want to ask people to do things that you're not going to do yourself. So that's really the importance. It's, quick in a nutshell.
That's awesome. Rich, why don't we, what does using your voice mean to you?
I think for me, it's in my position and what I've done with my career and things like that. I feel like I have an obligation to be open about my personal recovery. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I've been in recovery for 26 years from an opioid use disorder and an alcohol use disorder. And that was new for me, Alan. That's not how I was taught. Like I came up through the anonymous programs. I got this back in the old school days when you didn't say anything about it. And so it was a radical change for me to be able to get up in front of groups like this and just openly say I'm in recovery. But the way it was taught to me, and I didn't know how to do this, I had to be taught to do this, is people said, like, look, if you kind of like don't talk about this, how does anybody know that it's even a thing? Like, if nobody talks about recovery, if nobody's open about their own personal experience, how does anybody else ever know that there's a way out?
Right.
So that was a big deal when I heard people explain it to me, because I was conditioned on the anonymous programs. I was conditioned that, like, you don't say a word. So I had to be taught to do it. If that, you know what I mean? Like, I had to be brought along, but I get it now. I'll talk about it anywhere, you know.
I appreciate you sharing that. That's so powerful. Alejandro, from a therapist perspective, can you share why it's important and what does it mean to you to use the voice?
You know, using your voice, I think, is extremely important. Not only is that's when we're able to personalize, identify, and really express and articulate what's happening inside, but moving further from that, folks, like, using your voice can give permission for someone else to actually share what's going on with them.
Exactly.
You hear, like, I myself, I'm a male therapist. I'm a Mexican background, Latino background. That was not happening. Mental health was not happening in my family. Heck no, especially coming from uncles and dad and cousins in the drywall in the drywall community. No, right? But the reality is, when you are able to use your voice, it makes it easier for someone next to you to then do the same. So yeah. I want to echo that point for everyone here listening.
It's so powerful, and you're spot on. I did a presentation for a construction company at their safety meeting early in the morning, real early in the morning. Anyway, after my 10-minute presentation of just sharing my voice, I had about 10, 15 people come up to me as they were walking out, telling me their story. And one of them I had to do an intervention with. And it's just, people want to open up. They want to talk, but they want to hear from other people to feel that comfort level. So I appreciate all your comments there.
Exactly.
That's perfect. So what I'm hearing from is that peers aren't expected to solve the problem. They're often the first person to open the door. Am I, that's what I'm hearing? Okay, perfect. All right. So Chris, I want to go back to you on this. Construction workers are some of the toughest people you've ever met. How do we redefine strength so asking for help becomes part of being strong instead of being seen as weak?
Seeing it as strength rather than weakness is, again, having the conversations with people, but also making it known, putting it out there, putting things out there. When you look at things like EAPs and resources, letting people know that those things are there. Something as simple as 988, letting people know that it's there and it exists. Touching on all the things, and really just staying with it, not visiting once or twice a year, but doing it, maybe bi-monthly or something, and just discussing, mental health or addiction or something within your safety culture.
That's awesome. Thank you. So, Rich, companies have invested more in mental health resources than ever before. Are workers actually aware of the resources, and more importantly, are they using them?
No.
Okay, simple answer.
I mean, this is one of those answers where I could try to be more politically correct and make everybody feel better about what's going on than what is going on. No, they're absolutely not used, Alan. And here's an interesting thing. Like, in my business, I spend a lot of time researching this and talking to industry officials and talking to other EAP providers. And this is really troubling. You can't even find the real utilization percentages in the construction industry for EAP. I was told, and this was by an EAP provider, that if you round in construction, you actually have to round down to 0% utilization.
Wow.
No, and here's the problem. It doesn't even pass the common sense test. And I don't want to be redundant, because it all relates to this peer model we were just talking about. The solution to this is more peers, in my opinion. But think about what any of us have talked about. I'll speak about my experience in my family. Tough guys, tough women who don't talk about anything. Most of them are a little bit older. I was born in the 1980s, Alan, my feelings were surgically removed from me at birth, right? I don't have feelings by definition. And we expect that that type of culture is all of a sudden going to pick up the phone and make an appointment with a therapist. Or, and I have made a commitment to myself that I'm going to speak truth to power as well. And I'm going to tell you right now, the reason this happens is it works for everybody. Contractors prefer EAPs to not be utilized because once you get in with a therapist, things get messy. Does that make sense? If I go see Alejandro and I'm stressed out at work, he's going to hear about it. And he might also hear about other things. So we have a big problem on our hands, guys. We have a system that's become self-reinforcing that needs to be broken and restarted. That's tough. But that I will not be quiet about this any longer. Like I have.
We don't want you to be. We don't
Well,
want you to be.
I don't want to alienate myself. I don't want to get blacklisted. I don't want to be like not. I've had that happen in the addiction treatment industry when I called out their bullshit. But there are some real difficult conversations that have to occur. It's this idea that we're going to do some talks and all of a sudden like things are going to change. That's not true, guys. It's
well, I really appreciate you sharing that, and again, your passion comes through. You know, it's so important to get that EAP out there and for the workers to understand what their benefits are and where they could go and what they could do. You know, there's been studies done that show that by putting investment into mental health, that the productivity increases, that the attendance increase, the work
everything gets better.
So
that's the part about
So
it.
in long run, the profitability gets better and it's a safer environment. So it's so important. But Alejandro, let's go to you. Why do so many people believe that seeing a therapist means something is wrong with them?
Because we've been lied. We've been lied to, Alan. We've been lied to our entire life. It's this like the biggest myth, the biggest like lie ever that speaking about what's happening inside of us is somehow inferior, is somehow weak, is somehow that means I'm broken and something's wrong. And I think that's the biggest thing that that unfortunately, and especially with men, mind you, especially with men, that happens. When I was in graduate school, I did my thesis on what was getting in the way, what were the barriers for men to seek help. Not just therapy, but like going to doctors, getting their physicals, blood work, etc. Right. And by far the common theme that kept arising was, I don't want people to see me as weak or less than. I don't want to be the weak friend in the group of friends, right? And it's this idea that's just completely like backwards, right? Because the hardest thing to do, in my opinion, is to actually face and look at the things that we've been avoiding for oftentimes years. We don't hesitate to like hire a mechanic when our cars or our truck's broken, right? Well, when it's out of our hands, of course, right? But we don't hire. We don't hesitate, right? But we hesitate with this, right? And look, and not all therapists not all therapists are the same. Just like not all mechanics are the same. Sometimes you have to find the right mechanic for yourself, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Not all plumbers know how to do the same type of job the right way. You got to find the right plumber. So it's that same idea, right? And unfortunately, that's the biggest lie I think we've been told, is that because I need to work on what's happening inside of me, that I am somehow weak or less than. And that is the biggest, most backward thing here. That you can't see this right now because the screen is here, but my couch is back here, my therapy couch. And you know how many men in there that I work with that talk about real stuff. And that is often the hardest thing to do in your life, period. To face something that you've been avoiding. That's really hard.
Yeah. Well, what I've learned, and I know we all learned, is that, like you said, what I think it shows is actually strength. It's actual strength. It's not weakness. To be able to, you're just talking to somebody. So
absolutely,
that's all it is. Anyway, all right. So here I want to do this. I want to throw out a few statements to you, all together. I want you to tell me if they're myth or fact. Okay. Asking for help is a sign of weakness.
Myth.
There we go. Talking about suicide puts the idea in someone's head.
Myth.
Real men handle problems on their own.
Myth.
Going to your family doctor is always enough.
Myth.
Nope.
Okay. Mental health should be treated like physical safety on the job site.
Truth.
There we go.
That's a fact. Yep.
There we go. Okay. All right. So, Chris, think about someone you've worked with over the years. What are the subtle signs that tell you that someone just isn't themselves anymore, that something's changed, something's going on with them?
There's so many of them, but to just condense it, we work with each other every day. And in this field, 8-hour minimums, 10 hours, 12 hours, not being themselves, not acting like themselves, isolating, noticing that they're a little bit more disheveled if they were somebody that always kept their hair right and their hair's a little bit messy. There's really sometimes the smallest things can tip you off. And there's nothing wrong with, saying that. And it's important to make that personal,
Yeah.
Hey, Alan, I noticed your clothes are all over the place. You're usually, more put together. You all right?
That, I'm sorry, go ahead, continue.
And that's it. Just wait for that answer, because now what you want to do is you want to listen. But you've pointed out something, you've said something, you've made it known, and you also made it known that you care.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. I mean, again, in one of the trainings I do called Safe Talk, we talk about what you see, hear, sense, and learn. That's what you want to see. If you see something, if you sense something's going on, which is the gut feeling, those are the type of things that you want, something different in somebody that changed. So That's perfect. Alejandro, let's make this practical. Imagine I noticed a coworker hasn't been themselves lately. Walk us through the conversation. What does a good check-in sound like?
So don't overthink this. Like literally don't overthink this. A lot of times we get stuck in our head about what to say, how to say it, am I going to come off this? Don't overthink it. If you can notice something's up with your line partner, with your friend, with someone at work, it's because you already have an existing relationship with them. More than likely, it's because you already have some type of connection. That is what is important. That connection is what important. Not so much what I'm going to say, what I'm not going to say. Oh my gosh, what if I do this? What if? Scratch all that. Remove that part. What matters is the already built relation that you probably, I'm assuming, already have. You don't need a perfect script. Some practical things, if you want to go into that, we can say this. Hey man, I've noticed whatever you've noticed. Instead of saying like, what's wrong with you? Or like, something like some kind of a judgment question like that. Yeah, a judgment question is probably not going to help. So saying things like, hey man, I've noticed that you've been coming in a little off lately. You okay? I want to check in with you. Hey, how have things been? I'm glad you told me. Thank you for trusting me. I'm here. I'm here if you ever want to talk.
That's perfect.
Something simple. But the biggest thing, folks, don't overthink it. Really don't.
Yeah, and you said something before, Chris, about how you go about explaining to them what you've seen in them. In the trainings that we have, again, specifically, I always say that what we're doing is people that are in crisis have two things: that they feel that nobody understands what they're going through, and they feel like nobody cares about them. They're alone, that they're a burden. And I can never tell somebody that I understand what you're going through. They just won't believe me, because everybody's situation is totally unique. But what I could do is I
like to put it in a practical thing, Alan, like in a practical scenario. If you and I were going to cross the street and I was going to step out into traffic and get hit by a car, would you say something?
Yeah.
So if you were going to say something there, why wouldn't you say something if I was acting a little different or if I was acting a little off? It's really none the different.
Absolutely. And again, what it does is it shows that you do care about the person, that they're not a burden, that you do love them. And because when you go through these things and you notice that about the person, what it's doing is saying that I care enough about you that I notice these things. I notice that you usually keep your hair nice. I notice that you usually dress this way. I notice that you're usually on time. And by the way you're talking to them, you're saying that they're there. They're not a burden and that they're not alone. I'm here for you. So that's so important. They always say like a smile or a hello could save a life, and it truly can. So let's go to you. Let's see here. Let's go. What I want to do now is I just want to go. All right, Alejandro, you went and you told us some of the things that are important to say. What are some things that you shouldn't say? What are some things that might not be the best way of talking to someone.
Yeah. Don't promise something you don't know, right? Don't promise something that you don't know. And look, and we do this all the time as humans to try to comfort people, right? Don't worry, it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. You'll get through it, right? Like, I mean, the intention is to obviously comfort and be there for support, but the reality is we actually don't know that, right?
Yeah.
We just don't. And I know that can be like hard to hear, but we don't know. So maybe avoid saying things like um, everything will be okay.
Yep.
Because maybe for that person, they may need to go through this very difficult process for a while. Maybe it will be okay, sure, right? But like sometimes that's not exactly what it's gonna really need, right? Um, Things like other people have it worse. Sure. Is it true? Is that a true statement? Maybe, possibly.
Hear that
I
a
don't
lot.
know, but like, is that gonna really help? No, it's not gonna really help. Pain isn't a competition, right? My pain with Chris's pain, we're not competing here. They're just, it's just different. It's not gonna necessarily thing. Or the other thing I hear a lot is just be positive. Just think positively. Just think positively. Just think positively. It's like there's a time and place for thinking positive, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to kind of this kind of stuff, that's usually when you kind of start stepping out of bounds there.
Yeah.
People don't heal by pretending.
Yeah, no,
One of the things that men are susceptible to is that whole like just do it type attitude. Like I know I'll speak for myself.
Yeah.
Like I can get bought into like you'll hear like podcasters and like ex-Navy SEALs and that whole like drag yourself up by your bootstraps attitude. That's infectious, especially for men. And that's
tough it out.
yeah. And so this idea of just tough it out, suck it up, that's not where you want to go. That has nothing to do with this. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I agree 100%. I mean, you hear so many things that people are trying to fix them, and that's not what we're here for. So Rich, from an employer's perspective, how do you create a space for the conversations during the workday with people feeling like they're not being watched or judged?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Alan. I think the first thing you have to do is really, and there are companies and a lot of companies, quite frankly, it's just not the majority of companies are doing this. There are places that are really, really focusing on this. And the first thing you have to do is you have to actually get with the leadership. I'm talking at the very tippy top of the company and find out, are they in or are they not in? And this is the question I would ask. Like, do you really want to invest in changing the culture? Do you really want to do something about this? Or do you want to just play at the surface, which is okay? Do you get that? No judgment. Just don't bullshit people. If that's what you want to do, then do it. But if you want to, here's what you have to do. You have to figure out, number one, money. How much are you willing to spend? That part of the equation is really interesting. I think people are willing to spend money on it, Alan. I think the problem is the second part, time. How do you actually manage the reality that Alejandro is going to have to come see Rich for an hour? And how do you do that during the day? You don't. This is where we need to do a better job as EAP providers, using peers or using what we do as on-site services. And we do this methodology called brief intervention. It's not an hour-long session. It's a specific way where I can interact with Chris in a 10 to 15-minute period, get a mini treatment plan together that might include calling Alejandro after work. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yep.
But I'm meeting with him. And this brief intervention model, here's what's very interesting about it. It's already been used in a lot of other industries, including healthcare. It's evidence-based, meaning that there's a lot of research behind it. We just need to deploy it into the industry. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's a solution that's there already. And how we use it is the best example I can give you is on job sites. We don't encourage people to come in for an hour-long session to talk about depression. We're like, how do we put you together for now? And then we get with people like Alejandro and refer. Does that make sense? Like,
absolutely.
It's like, I feel like us as behavioral health providers have to offer more of those type of interventions because they're more realistic, in my opinion.
Yeah, you have to make it easy. You have to make it as easy as possible. Absolutely. So, and don't forget, everybody, if you have any questions, we're going to be taking questions soon. Get it in the chat or the Q&A. So here's something I really wanted to go into because we're going to be basically going off of what you were just talking about, Alejandro, about what things not to say. So many of us want to help by offering advice or trying to fix the problem. Why is listening more helpful than trying to solve it? So, Chris, why don't we start with you on that?
We can't solve the problem. We're not the professionals. You know, to Rich's point, you know, small bites is easier, especially to a construction worker. I am one. So we take things in small bites better. You know, I like to say recognize the problem, react to the problem, and refer the problem to where it needs to go.
Yep.
You know, we're here to, almost to his point, to triage it. You know, quick conversation. Let's get your head back on straight, and then move ahead. Let's pick it up later. You know, as a peer, it's important to know your different things that you have available to you, whether that's the EAP program within the union, within the company, the medical benefits and what they offer within, you know, so you can direct people the proper way. And you have that conversation, you know, after, when you're one-on-one, you can sit down. You're not going to have a 1-hour therapy session. You know, you put the idea in the head, you plant some seeds, and you move on, and you revisit that conversation.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Alejandro, do you have something quick to add to that?
No, I think that's great, Chris. And you know, I think the point here is, folks, people will remember the time and the connection you spend with them, not necessarily the advice. Right? When it's all said and done, they're gonna forget what you say and the advice given. Like it's not gonna stick, folks. What's gonna help is just the time you took to ask them the questions, planting the seed. That is what's gonna land for them, right? They're looking to know that they're not alone. So
yeah,
we're not gonna fix that. Yeah.
Basically, what I've learned is people just want to be heard. And by listening and what you're doing, it's not only just hearing them, it's looking at them, it's your body language, it's a lot of other things that you do. And again, these are the things that the trainings help you with. But one of the other things is you got to remember, it's their story. It's not your story. It's their story, and it's a unique story. So you can't go and persuade anybody to do anything. You can't say, you know, look at, you got kids. The kids are, you know, what are you going to do? You know, you got to be able to have them come out and say they need help and they want to live. And if it comes from them, it's going to stick more. So with saying that, Rich, what guidance do you give supervisors and company leaders about these conversations? And how do they balance showing concern without minimalizing what someone is going through or jumping straight into the problem solving?
Yeah, I think it's one of the hardest parts of the conversation, or one of the biggest issues to solve, is how do you support those people that are supporting other people in the industry? Does that make sense? Like that, I don't know what the right term is, whether it's middle management or whatever, but those guys that are getting the calls, like in the world that I work in, they're called like foremen or team leads or superintendents and things like that. In the unions that I work with, they're called business managers or apprentice coordinators. There are people who take on more in any given organization. I would imagine Chris is like this. And they wind up getting all the phone calls and all the questions about mental health and all the crises. And I don't know if there's I think you guys we've hit on a lot of things on how those guys should interact, right? Listen more than you talk. Yep. Have referral resources available. Be willing to, Alan, you said something really important. Even if you sense something could be going on, go ahead and reach out. Like all that stuff's really important. But the other part we have to add to the equation is that group of people need special support. They need what some of the companies we're working with is that group gets assigned a facilitator, and we meet once a quarter as a group.
Yep.
And talk them through the emotional fallout of dealing with this stuff. Like Alejandro can attest to this. As a therapist, you get what's called a clinical supervisor, who's somebody that helps you talk through all the mess of helping other people. My argument goes like this. These guys are put in a similar position. They're not therapists, but they're hearing a lot of bullshit. We should probably figure out something special for them too. That's that's on us as behavioral health providers, or we have to figure out what do they need.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So, one of the messages I would really like everybody to get out of this too is what we do is we tell everybody to take it seriously. And again, I'm going back to the Safe Talk training where we have this thing called miss, dismiss, and avoid. That's the reasons why people don't help other people out there, because either they miss the signs, dismiss them that they're looking for attention, or they're not serious about talking about suicide, or they avoid it because they're not a mental health professional, or they're not. It's not their place, and that's all miss there. So what we do know is we want to take everything seriously. So even if you feel someone's going through the slightest pain, or you see something, you should approach them and talk to them. So Alejandro, let's go back to you. What if I say the wrong thing though? If saying something imperfect is still better than saying nothing at all?
Look, the reality is most people worry about saying the perfect thing, right? But in reality, saying something imperfect with genuine care is almost always better than saying nothing because you're afraid of getting it wrong. If you're worried that you're not sure what to say something. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's perfect. So, Rich, once someone says I need help, where do they go? And walk us through the different options available.
So if anybody was out there and they were listening, like the one thing I would do is I would audit my current EAP in the company that I work for. And if I'm part of a union, I would see whether the local has an EAP. And even some unions have like international safety net EAPs. That's what I do for a lot of unions. And I would be like, go find out exactly what's available. Get the phone numbers, write them down, put them in your phone, whatever you need to do, have it. And I would tell people you're probably going to have to dig for it. You might have to go talk to multiple people. It will not be easy to find this information. So, because I think the biggest thing is, and everybody's hit on this already, like the most important thing is listen, care. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. But you got to be able to back it up with a tangible next step. And to me, that would start with using the resources that are already available, that somebody already paid for. You know what I mean? It's like a gym membership. You might as well use it. It's there. But I honestly, as weird as it sounds and as simple as it sounds, most people don't even know where to find that stuff. And it's never really been communicated in any kind of an effective way. It's an afterthought. This has been, and I might be really naive. I come into this as an outsider a little bit. I know a little bit about the construction industry, and I come into this and I'm thinking like, it's not as bad as people are saying. Like they know where these EAP numbers are and stuff. And then I get in there and I find out like nobody knows. Nobody knows. And people look at you like I have two heads when I say like, do you know you have a counseling available? It's already paid for. And that's where I would start, Alan. Get all that straight in your head. And then when you go out to the world to help people or out to the job site or whatever it is, you got to have that and write it down, have a card, however that looks for you. That's where I would start.
Perfect. So, Chris, what can every contractor do to make sure workers know where to turn before a crisis happens?
Well, we got to prepare ourselves. We got to be ready for what happens before it happens. And we do that a little bit in construction. We have fire extinguishers on site. We have AEDs on site. We have things that we're preparing ourselves for, something that we sure as heck don't want to happen, but we're ready for it if it does happen. This is no different. Having an area, having places where your EAP and things are, or a point person of somebody you can speak to of what does it offer. To Rich's point, auditing, knowing what there is to offer is huge. Yeah. We're construction workers. We sign up when we sign up for the company, we want to know when payday is and how much we're getting paid. Other than that, the other 40 pages that I signed that you told me to bring home and read, that's not going to happen. All right. And I signed something, and in there somewhere is my EAP. I get it. And as an employer, you say, well, we gave that to you. Yeah, I didn't read it. You know what I mean? And I understand the back and forth of, it's your job to read it. But it's all our jobs to get the information out there. It's
Alan,
really
this is
all of
it
our
right
jobs.
there. That right there is it.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Yeah.
It was kind of ironic. I thought I was doing a training one time at a site, and it was in their safety room. And I saw on the side of the room, they had all the tools like marked off where they're supposed to go and everything else. It was like a whole manual on it. But it was like a visual site on it. And I'm like, okay, that's great. That's the physical stuff. But where's the mental stuff? Where's where's that stuff? So,
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I try to just say that to employers and unions, invest in your workforce. We invest in the machines, we invest in the tools, we invest in everything that we need. Invest in the people that are making it happen. Because without those people, where are you going to be?
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
And to the defense of the industry, to defend the industry, though, keep in mind that my profession, behavioral health, we've educated you to blame the patient. If you think about it, think about rehab, for example. Relapses are blamed on the patient. So we threw this solution out to construction called EAP, and as if it was going to work. So I want to make sure I communicate this clearly. I think construction bears responsibility in this, but I think us as providers bear responsibility too.
Yeah.
We just haven't given you anything to work with yet, in my opinion.
And it's education as well, Rich, because there's a long-term plan that needs to happen when you talk about mental health and addiction. A lot of people think you go into an inpatient, you come out and you're fixed. That's not the way it works. So education on how mental health, works, how coming back from it works, the journey that it's going to be. Yeah. So those are things that need to be explained.
And it's building a culture inside, what you're doing there. Anyway, we do have a couple quick questions. Do you think, Coach, this is from Olivia Williams. Do you think coaching is more approachable than therapy?
I think that coaching I think it's not anything's more effective, Alan. I think it's a necessary part of the equation. Just like in healthcare, you have different specialties and you have people that do certain things and you have surgeons who operate on my heart, right? But I also have physical trainers that help me with my exercise, and I have nutritionists who help me with my diet. You want to think of it more like that rather than one is better than the other. Coaching serves a purpose, and it's similar to all the peer support stuff we just said. It's going to get, and I'm a big believer in coaching because I think it's the way to bridge the gap. But it's not a matter of one is better than the other. All of it is necessary.
Absolutely. And Tom here made actually a good point. He says every new hire orientation I make it a point to hand out our EAP info and spend a few minutes to talk about it. We have had a good EAP rates since we started in January 2025. And it's so important. You go over everything else. You go over the benefits. You go through health, you go through dental and everything else. This should be a part of it too.
That's a perfect example, though. Believe it or not, not everybody does that. Not everyone does what he just said, where I've witnessed sites where they do EAP announcements every orientation, and even something that simple does make a difference. So
walk us through, how would you, do you have a program that you set up with them? You do HR or EAP programs. Do you have
and it's always up to the company. And I want to really emphasize there's a great variety of responses. Some companies are like, no, we're cool with the gym membership model. Other companies are like, no, Rich, we want you to come visit. We want your people to come visit. And the best, most effective is they turn it into a routine part of all the other conversations. It's just every orientation we're talking about it. Every toolbox talk we're talking about it. It becomes, how we have Mental Health Awareness Month? It's less about Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's more about this is just an everyday part of our culture. Those are the ones that are getting it right.
No, that's perfect. So Alejandro, how do you know when someone needs immediate intervention instead of simply encouragement?
Great question. Before I answer that, though, I do want to just say something to everyone here. And now that you guys are here, mental health therapy is a covered benefit in your insurance. It is. You'll be surprised how many people don't know that. My own family, I'm a therapist. My own family members didn't even know that. I'm like, I've been doing this for 17 years, guys. Yes, it's covered in your insurance, right? Just know that. So I feel like I need to say that. We're talking about if you're like, it's in your plan. You've already paid. I love that remark. You're already paid for the gym membership. You might as well use it. I love that. But yes, your insurance plan covers mental health. It's like a national law, I believe, right? Y'all can educate me on that. But anyways, moving on from that. I had to say that because so many people don't know that. When is an emergency? Okay, so when it's an emergency, when you hear something, and this, to warn everyone, you may hear this and may feel like, whoa, there's a lot. So just give you the warning. But if someone tells you they want to die, if they're talking about suicide, if they have a plan, if they're saying, hey, people would be better off without them. If you believe they're in immediate danger, then don't leave them alone, right? You don't want to leave them alone. You want to get help. Call 988 if needed. And hopefully, Rich, Chris, jump in there and add him like, all right, here we go, right? We have this already kind of organized plan on what to do. We have these already structured policies or whatever in place to do what you have to do. But if you hear any of these things, right? Number one, that means that they trust you, which is huge, right? Huge. I can't underscore that enough. And secondly, now that we're there, you don't have to carry the burden of walking through that with them. You don't have to carry that because that can be a lot for you. But you can, to Chris and Rich and Alan's point, like, hey, let's bring this guy in here now, right? Let's get that peer support. Let's get someone here, right here, to kind of go to the next steps and call whoever we need to call to keep them safe.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And we go through all these trainings, for the job sites, how to do something, how to, basically do your job. You got a lot of trainings there. You should also have trainings for suicide first aid and have that confidence. And one of the funny things that I always talk about when I do presentations is I ask people, how many people have know CPR? And everybody raises their hand. And I say, how many people know suicide first aid? And you'll have a couple people raise their hand. Next question is, how many people that are trained in CPR use what they've learned? You don't really get anybody. I usually get no one unless it's a medical, conference or something. And then I ask how many people have done an intervention, and you usually get about a dozen or more people that raise their hand. And it just shows CPR is important to know. You've got to know it, but you're going to come across somebody more likely in a crisis situation than you will them stop breathing. So both trainings are extremely important. And I recommend that everybody gets it. And anyway, so let's go to, got a couple minutes left. So I just want to ask Chris and Rick something. Let's say a lineman, operator, laborer, or carpenter. The foreman isn't someone I feel comfortable talking to. What should they do? Chris, what do you think?
There's other people on that job, and that's where peers come into place. You gotta, to Alejandro's point, you have to be comfortable with who you're talking to, and that starts right from the beginning with this. So if it's, you don't want to go to your foreman about it, there's gonna be another way around it, but that's where a peer can jump in, and we could figure out the way to go. Or maybe we could talk to the foreman, after we know which way it needs to go.
Alan, in the quote unquote larger world or real world or whatever you're going to think about, in the civilian world, there's this thing called recovery advocates or advocates. And it's this idea of basically what it is that we've acknowledged that the system is insufficient and is going to let people fall through the cracks. So we have to have peers and coaches and other people who will help stick up for people. And this is an example of a situation where you need to have an advocate involved. This is where I also challenge the way we want to think about how do we train peers in construction. And I think we got to bring in some stuff from the outside world and say like, hey, let's teach these guys advocacy skills. Because here's what this needs to happen in this situation. They're not going to go to the foreman, so the foreman's not going to guide them. This person is going to have to dig in and find the EAP stuff on their own. They're going to have to make all these calls on their own. And do you follow me? Like, it shouldn't be that way, but that's how it's going to be. They may not even want to go to eight. This is a reality of life that I am in the middle of a situation like this right now with one of our customers. This employee does not want to go to HR because they're afraid that there'll be retribution if it happens. What we are doing is we're advocating for that employee to find out what all their resources are, to get all their ducks in a row, and they're going to call their EAP and they're going to work it. Do you follow? And the EAP, now keep in mind what Alejandro said, not all mechanics are created equal, not all therapists are created equal, and not all EAP providers are created equal. But the EAP has a responsibility to help them with all of that. Does that make sense? It's not just the difference between being a therapist and an EAP therapist is I had to go get a special credential because it involves HR law. And that's what this person needs, is he's going to have to be his own advocate. And that sucks, but that's the reality of life. And I would argue we all do it all day in other areas of our lives.
Well, one thing I want to make sure people should know is that, first of all, 988 is always there. It's a simple number. It's a number that you call, and a lot of resources. And it just doesn't have to be that you're in the middle of an attempt or something. It could be that you just want to talk to them, you know, as far as crisis situation. They have a lot of resources, so that's always good. There are a list of resources that you should put down, so you know if somebody's in crisis, what you could do. You should know if there's where to go on a job site. So these are things that you should write down. Somebody mentioned it before about having a card and writing it down. I recommend highly. And 988.
Can I tell you a story real quick? Can I tell you a story real quick?
Real quick.
That illustrates this. I guess I want to really emphasize people need to be their own advocates too. I had an experience with my adult daughter where she had a mental health crisis and she wound up needing to go through treatment in Arizona. And what happened was they never asked for her insurance card. Nobody ever pursued whether or not she had insurance. So they just wouldn't put her into programs. Does that make sense? They didn't realize that she had commercial insurance because the questions were never asked. It's Alejandro's point. Like, some people don't even understand that they have this stuff covered. And so it starts with, you're going to have to stick up for yourself and ask a bunch of questions. Absolutely. I guess I want to emphasize that. It's an imperfect process. Yeah.
Right. And I just wanted to emphasize that other people should also have all those resources so they know if somebody's in crisis, where to connect them to and where to help them. All right. So we got like 2 minutes left. So I want to finish it up. If somebody listening here, going on the job site tomorrow, and want them to remember one thing from this conversation, in 30 seconds, what is the one message you want them to carry with them? Chris.
Listening's powerful. You don't have to know what to say, but it's important to say something.
That's awesome. Rich, why don't you go?
What I would do is I would tell them, look around, look at everybody who's in your vicinity, whether you're at the airport or on the job site or where, and understand that each and every one of them are screwed up too. And when I say you are not in this alone, it's a universal experience, and reaching out and getting help is the bravest thing to do. And don't be thinking that there are normal people versus abnormal people. The truth is we're all screwed up in our own little way, and getting help is the brave thing to do. Some message like that is what people need to hear.
That's awesome. Alejandro, why don't you wrap it up for us?
You don't have to go through this alone. Underscore that. You don't have to go through this alone. Like, mental health is not about having all the right answers or having the answers, right? It's about making sure no one is going through this alone. One conversation is not going to solve all your problems, but having that conversation can change someone's life.
Absolutely. And open the door. And I want to throw a couple of phrases out. Be the voice. And then the other thing I'm going to say, I'm going to promote my podcast real quick. Real Convo. You want to be a voice, and you want to have a real convo. And I really appreciate you guys. I really do. You guys are amazing. So thank you, Alejandro, Chris, and Rich. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. We will send a recording of today's presentation to all registered attendees, and we will encourage you to share it with your colleagues. Please visit www.constructionsuicideprevention.com to find resources and register your participation. Make sure you register for our final webinar in 2026 series as well, and have a great day. Thank you all.